Hello, this is the April edition of the monthly video chat. For streaming, I'm gonna have my girlfriend gave me footage. I didn't have time to really record much, and this is of her in Guild Wars. And actually, I just realized this might end up being out of order, so we'll see what happens with that. Okay, so I'm gonna have announcements, and then go to questions that people submitted, and then live questions at the end. I have a lot of questions this time, so I plan on skipping. Well, I'll get to that in a bit. Okay, and announcements. Let's see. Okay, yeah. First off, I'm sorry the current game dungeon isn't out yet. Uh, it was just a juggling act trying to get things done. Um, I've done a lot of work on it. I'm predicting be roughly 3 days from now. That's not a guarantee by any means, so hopefully it'll be as soon as I can, though. Hopefully a little earlier, but this is one that didn't really feel like I needed to rush. So, uh, yeah, I gotta keep moving on this one because there's so much to cover. Okay, yeah, and after the next game dungeon, next video is gonna be the planet side kind of recruitment thing where, I'm gonna, you know, explain to everybody what's going on with it, try to have like the hopefully monthly play session at PlanetSide with all the fans, explain how it's going to work, and if you've never played PlanetSide at the end, I'll have like a tutorial that should get anyone up and going and be able to have fun with it. So that'll be next after the next game dungeon. I'm no promise, but I'm hoping to start the PlanetSide sessions like in the middle of the month. So again, I'll see what happens, but okay. Oh yeah, a lot of people may have missed it. If you're interested, I did another sort of podcast session. It's similar to the co-optional podcast in the format. It's the GOGcast or GOGcast. They have their own podcast series that I got invited onto. I mentioned some stuff about Freeman's Mind and the movie, but a whole lot of it was talking about games that are being killed off. So we did go in circles a little bit on that, but I thought maybe we should have cut it down a little more. But if you want to, it's something worth listening to. When this is up on YouTube, I'll have a link linking to it. If you want to see it now, it's also on my website. It's like a couple entries down from the latest one. So you can check that out. It goes on for a while. It's about 2 hours. Okay. Next, I'm sort of unofficially putting myself on like a 3 month plan to get stuff I've been neglecting for just forever. And during this time, I want to hopefully get the website revised because it's kind of archaic at the moment and there's stuff I want to update to it. I want to reply to all the higher importance emails, people offering to help with stuff or like detailed questions or had a whole lot to write to me. It's probably still going to be a really long time before I ever reply to all the birthday emails, but everything else I kind of really want to get on top of. It's reaching crisis levels to the amount of neglect I've been putting on the email. So if I haven't responded to you at all, it's not because I don't care. It's like, this person. It's because I just kind of overwhelmed by it, but I really want to get on top of that. And also I want to get a lot of prep work for other video production ideas I've had done. I really think I can increase my video production rate without it eating into my time too much, but I have to get more foundation stuff established, and that's what I've been neglecting. So let's see, moving on. Let's see. Yeah, after the plant side, next game dungeon, I may try to get another game dungeon out this month. I'll see. I haven't decided which one I want to do yet. There's still several that I really want to cover, but some of them take a lot more preparation than others just because there's a whole lot to some of the games I want to cover, and others there's not so much. So I'm still figuring out which one I want to do after that, but I'm not putting it on hold or anything like that. It's just a matter of what comes next in line. Oh yeah, I was originally going to do a follow-up video to the robot jobs one on the last Ross Rants because I thought there, what? Yeah, people brought up so many different points after that. I thought, wow, there's so much commentary. Maybe I should explain things a little bit more, address a few more points. I wrote out what I was going to say. I recorded it. The footage got screwed up again, and it just kind of killed my morale on it. It's not that I give up if something screws up and I have to throw out hours of work, but it does make me reconsider how much is this worth doing. And I felt like, maybe I shouldn't. I wouldn't have made the moon gaming in time if I had done that. So I'm tempted to just get the highlights of that out of the way right now on this video chat. Because, yeah, I mean, like, I think the most anticipated games video or my original announcements one, I think I redid that one maybe 3 times. Like, the camera kept screwing up in different ways. So if it's something I really want to do, I'll get it done. But for stuff that makes me think, maybe I shouldn't make this video, then that's enough to sometimes put in the grave. But here, I'll cover the highlights of that right now. And then I'll go on to answer questions. Okay. So things I wanted to bring up. A lot of people did not understand the pathways in the brain connection quote. Because they're saying, yeah, how can you have more connections in the brain than you have atoms? Well, you're right on that point. What it meant was the more potential pathways. Now, if you're just listening to this, you might need to see an audio example. But like, say you have a triangle. Okay, that's 3 sides, 3 points. Well, okay, so there's only 3 connections between the 3 different points, right? Well, that's 1, 2, 3 pathways, like if these were neurons. But say you could have ones like this, that connect 2 like that. That's going to be a different connection or a different thought in your mind than just going to 1. So that's 4, 5, 6, and then you could have 7, if they connected all 3. And that's just if the connections are instantaneous. If they go in different directions, like the direction matters or the point of origin matters more, then you have up to 18 combinations, even though you just have 3 connections. So if you apply that to every neuron in the brain or every synapse, then the number just gets astronomically large for potential combinations. Yeah, so I hope that explains it for people who didn't get that. Let's see. Oh yeah, some people didn't think I explained why I don't think there's going to be a conscious AI anytime soon. Well, yeah, like a lot of people were mentioning that recently the best Go player in the world got beaten by an AI. Okay, first off, Go is far less complicated than the brain. There's about 361 potential grid points you can have in Go, by a 19 by 19 grid. And we know the rules. Go has very clear established rules. The brain consciousness does not. We don't know how that works exactly. So there's only 2 ways I see as theoretically creating a conscious AI. The first is to just program in the rules and get it done. But the thing is, we don't even know the rules. The example I was going to use is, can you explain to me exactly what parts of my brain I should change so that every time I think about Julius Caesar, I think of dancing eggplants instead? You can't do that. No neurosurgeon or programmer in the world can tell you exactly what to change. So we can't really program in the rules, even if we had the fastest computer in the universe, because we don't understand ourselves. So that way's out. The second method would be to create some sort of learning program that can, reprogram itself and change its parameters and just collects more and more data. Well, with that, you run into a similar problem where I think there's this misconception where, as things collect more data and processing power gets better, then eventually this consciousness will just emerge from all that. But there's no guarantee of that happening at all. It could just be sort of random data processing and changing forever and without ever hitting a consciousness. So that's the thing. We don't exactly know, or the computer program wouldn't exactly know what's the right data that leads towards consciousness and what's not. I do think we'll have more life-like AI, but the point I was trying to make is the difference between getting to an AI that acts kind of like a human intelligence versus an actual conscious digital being is the difference between getting to the moon or getting to another galaxy. It's so enormous. So even though it looks like we're getting closer and closer, and in practical terms, the AIs can replace more functions, it's long way to go. Long way to go. And some people didn't like some of the data I put on jobs. In fact, my project manager got on my case about mentioning the real unemployment rate. The data is just my best guess at this stuff. I'm not an expert. You can find competing data for a lot of things, though I think when adjusted for inflation, I think the wages have stayed about the same. Some people are arguing benefits should be included in that. There's so much debate on that either way that I didn't really want to go further into it. For the real unemployment thing, my point with that was that it doesn't include people who are underemployed, people who need full-time but can't find those kinds of jobs, or, underemployed or discouraged workers, like people who would but have been just trying too long to find a job. Like, even though they still want a job, it's there for some reason. If you haven't had one in a long time, we count that as not being unemployed. And there's all sorts of kind of fringe cases, like say someone's self-employed, but they're earning less than minimum wage, like myself, for stuff that I earn. That's what I mean. My point was, I think there's a lot of indicators showing that there's still a lot of strain for workers right now, and that's with all the tools we have, like with internet and computers and everything. So I'm not convinced that the robots are going to be making that situation better. Let's see. Oh yeah, a few people were saying the economy would collapse before robots displaced like half of the workforce, or 30%, because enough people wouldn't be able to buy goods and services. Yeah, could be the case. That's still a big problem. I mean, that's sort of like a different path, but a similar destination. So either way, it's an issue. And so, yeah, I'm not arguing that, but it's still something to worry about. And finally, some people were saying the potential solutions, I don't know if they are the solutions, were like too left-wing or too communist or something. Now, if I missed somebody, I apologize, but best I could tell, every single person who said that didn't provide me an alternative solution. So that's how it works. If there's a problem and you don't like somebody's proposed solution, you have to give an alternative. Otherwise, you're framing it so that it's either no solution or iffy solution. Well, I'll typically take an iffy solution over none at all. So, the burden is on you then to come up with a different solution. A few people were convinced this wasn't going to happen. Like, some people were saying, like, if McDonald's went to full robotics, the prices would just plummet on burgers. And I don't know. I think, if you control enough of the market with your influence, you can keep, or hey, you work together with other large corporations to keep prices exactly where they are. Only in real competitive environments do you see prices drop like immediately. Whereas they may want to recoup their cost in switching to robotics, because that's going to be a lot of cost up front. So I don't think it's a guarantee robotics will lead to just plummeting prices and everything because they don't have to pay for labor. Yeah, hey, somebody says in the comments, the economy is weird, man. Exactly. All kinds of things can happen. It's rarely very simple, Okay, so those are the highlights. That's basically what I was going to say in the follow-up video. Let's see. Okay, so what's next? Oh yeah, questions. Whole lot of questions this time. I'm probably going to skip the ones that are, have you heard of this game? Sorry. It's just, if it's a game I really want to talk about, I'll probably make a game dungeon on it at some point anyway. A lot of these I may not have heard of, and I may make a note of it, or just didn't have a strong opinion about it. And a few others I may not have that good an answer for, and I'm skipping some of those too. So I'm just going to try and fly through we'll see how long that takes. Again, there's a bunch this time. So let me get going with that. Okay, I know you have said you would never use Source Filmmaker again, but I still am wondering something. Exactly how crappy is it, and would you recommend it to a beginner to animation? It's a difficult question because For beginners tools, I'm not sure what the best option is. I really don't know. The I mean, visually it can look really good, but there's more than this. But here's some of the problems I remember. It can't cast world shadows, or it's such a workaround to do that. Like if I were to run a map in the source engine that's like broad daylight, and you have the person walking around, they're not going to cast a shadow in Source Filmmaker. It's only that they tend to have like spotlight shadows that you have to create on top of whatever the map lighting is. So that's one limitation. It doesn't do physics, which again, maybe there's some weird, janky workarounds. But like if you, like in Civil Protection, if I want ragdoll physics because Mike's getting thrown around and everything, I don't have to program in. I just say, okay, throw the body this way and let the physics engine take care of it. Whereas you really need to kind of plot out every movement, which is kind of ridiculous, I think. Third is geez, I'm trying to remember. Well, another one is with the camera tools. I think for AVI, you can't export more than like a 4 gigabyte file without it crashing or something. They may have fixed that, but that was definitely the case for a year or two for AVI because they're using that old format, which that goes back to my Freeman's Mind HD video, where it's because they're using code that's been modified and modified and modified from the Quake 1 engine. So, oh yeah, walking paths. It's not super difficult like in the Source SDK to say, hey, walk here, walk here, walk here. Just plan the points, play this animation when you turn. You have to manually plot so much more of that out in Source Filmmaker. Oh yeah, that was the big thing I hated. Source Filmmaker has this tendency to just bake all the animations together. So if I want somebody waving his hand as he walks by and then say something, and then I find out later, oh, you know what? He's waving his hand too fast. I want to slow down just that wave animation. You might be better off redoing the entire animation because it'll, if you've like saved your work and exited and are coming back, because then you might have to modify that walking animation also because it'll slow that down too. Or, you can just isolate just the arm, but then the torso movement will look a little weird. And for something like Face Poser in the Source SDK, that's not a problem. You just move, okay, stretch this animation. There you go. Not that the Source SDK doesn't have its own problems. Again, I've said before, it's like a yin-yang. So those are a few examples. You may want to look into something like iClone or maybe MovieStorm if you just want to start off with animation. But hey, Source Filmmaker's free. If you're willing to deal with it, I don't want to like discourage people from making videos, but for me, it was just too many problems that I ran into. Oh yeah, yeah. I'm remembering another problem of like transporting animations and everything from one scene to another. I remember was a much or files from one map to another. I remember was a much bigger. There were much more obstacles in that Source Filmmaker than there was in the SDK. But like the camera options were. Okay, I'm remembering another one. I'm going to go on forever about this, but there's lots of small problems. Feel free to suggest better software for beginners. I've sort of stumbled into this by accident. Okay, next question. I got to keep moving. Hey Ross, did you hear some fans are reverse engineering Need for Speed World? Yes, I have heard of that. I found out about it shortly afterwards. I plan to show it when I do the follow-up episode for Game Dungeon. It doesn't have full functionality, but you can drive around in it, which is great. Man, that's basically what the heart of what I want. I want to be able to experience these worlds in some fashion that are being closed down. I mean, it's great that happened for Need for Speed World, but hey, as of last time I checked, you still cannot play Battleforge. I know one group is working on it, but you can't. You can't, no, outside that development team, all they have is going is like the lobby. No player can play Battleforge at this point. And also for the Need for Speed World thing, if anyone knows how to get the Halloween mode activated, I'd love to see that. They actually activated the Christmas mode towards the end when it was shutting down, but they have a Halloween mode with decorations around the town. I'd love to see that. Hopefully somebody can figure out how to get that working too. So you can email me if you know how to do that. Okay, next question. Sorry if. Okay, well, this is opinion about a game. Again, there's so many questions. I plan to get to more. I plan to eventually get to more videos talking about games. That's part of that 3-month plan thing I'm doing. Okay. If you were in Black Mesa at the Resonance Cascade, how would you escape from there? Well, you're kind of funneled along a certain path in Half-Life. I think I would, well, one, I would try to avoid teleportation at all costs because I don't trust that. And two, I would probably try to do something similar to what, a lot of people don't like it, but I really like how Blue Shift ended with, just get in an SUV with some scientists and drive off. Just get out of there, I think that would be my approach to something. Get to a vehicle and drive off. Just get out of there, so I think I like how the ending to Blue Shift. It's very straightforward, but it makes sense. Okay, is the movie going to use the same motion blur effect as Freeman's Mind? Yes, if not better. That'll be the easiest answer. Okay, this is another. Oh no, okay. Do you enjoy Pentakill? It's a fictional band created by the Riot Team, creators of League of Legends. I'm not very familiar with it, but I have heard of League of Legends. Sometimes I'll see their promo video. I don't really play League of Legends, but sometimes I'll see their promo videos. Some of them have really good music. Like, actually, their recent April Fool's one, they had this Draven rock theme. Man, I loved it. I could listen to music like that all day. So, yeah, check that out. Like, League of Legends, April Fool's 2016 login. You can find the music to it. It's so, yeah, I'll probably have to check more of them out. And they did another April Fool's Welcome to Planet Earth, which I used in my birthday video. It's kind of this cool, funky electronic stuff going on with it. Okay. Okay, this is a longer one. Someone's mentioning Medal of Honor Allied Assault basically the multiplayer got killed when EA shut down GameSpy, and he was saying it had hundreds, if not thousands, of players when it did. He'd love to see it come back. I think there's a whole lot of stories like this where, maybe that's the thing with so many games getting killed now. I think there's not many that just everybody agrees this is the best game ever, but I think there's more and more where for some people they love that game. So they might shut down 20 games and there'll be one of them they loved that one. And I really do hope to get more done kind of creating kind of awareness of this issue, maybe kind of getting it changed. That's going to take me a couple more months to get around to do that properly, though. If you have ideas on how to launch a campaign on this, feel free to email me. Again, my email's rosswscott@gmail.com. I have a few ideas, but I'm going to make a video dedicated to that and hopefully try to get more done with that. So, we'll compile a big list of everything that's getting shut down because there's some games are completely unplayable, like Darkspore or Battleforge. Other games, yes, you can play the single player, but the multiplayer is unplayable. And in some of those games, the multiplayer was better than the single player. So it's all worth, kind of creating a record of this stuff, not just a record, and figuring out ways to get it changed. That's the big thing I want to focus on. Okay, this person's asking a lot of questions. I'm going to have to kind of pick and choose. Let's see. Some of these would be good questions, but they'll take me too long to think of an answer. Like what's your favorite this? Sometimes I have a quick answer, sometimes I don't. I think I might have answered this one, but in Freeman's Mind, you made several mentions about Cthulhu and other references about the Lovecraftian mythos. What first got you interested in or introduced you to H.P. Lovecraft's works? I don't remember exactly. I don't think it happened until like my 20s, really. I think a friend of mine had mentioned it, or you spend a certain amount of time online, you're gonna come across some Lovecraft reference. I think, and I think this sort of eventually sort of piled up. I thought, okay, maybe I should see what this is about, and then I finally kind of read some of the books or watched a movie that's based on one. And okay, you know what the first one that really blew me away was. Uh, I think I was definitely aware of this before then, but I think the first one that really grabbed me was, I watch a lot of scary movies or horror movies, and there was one called Dagon, which is actually based on the Shadow over Innsmouth short story by Lovecraft, and it was awesome. I loved it. This may sound like blasphemy, but I honestly thought the movie was even better than the written story. I mean, it's just great. So yeah, if you love Lovecraft, you can do yourself a favor and check out the movie Dagon or Dagon. Maybe I'm saying that wrong. Dagon or Dagon, and I love that, and that got me looking into more of it. And then it doesn't follow it exactly, but again, I think it's even better. I think it's even better than what they made. So I think that was definitely my first hook moment. Oh, somebody's asking about the chat. I'm really not going to look at the chat that much until after I've gone through the. See, these are the questions people asked like a week ago in an email or the forum post. I'll look at the chat after that. So kind of save your live questions until the end. Okay. What kind of book does your girlfriend want to write? What language is it? What languages will it be available in? She's working on a sort of a light fantasy, light in tone, so it's not going to be like like bitter people getting killed all the time stuff. It's going to, and it might be part comedy, I don't know, but it's definitely going to be sort of light tone fantasy. She's writing it in Polish. If she manages to get it, finished and published, we'll probably look into like a professional English translation. That's still a ways off. I'm not giving her any pressure on that. I mean, look how it's gonna. I'm focusing on getting my movie made, so that's more of a question for her. Oh yeah, I did mention that she might appear this podcast. Looks like maybe not. We'll have to wait till. That's up to her, because for some people appearing before an audience of potentially thousands can be a bit intimidating. So it's. Well, hey, you get to seeing sort of a tertiary form of her, and this is her playing in Guild Wars 2. I actually don't play much. I tried playing Guild Wars. It didn't quite grab Guild Wars 2. Didn't quite grab me. Again, it's some atmospheres get me more than others. I kind of like the. Okay, I'm getting distracted. So yeah, this is my girlfriend playing here. Everything you're watching in the video chat. Okay, this is asking if you heard about this game. Let's see. Okay. Recently, I stumbled into the discovery that one of the creators of Boppin, Jennifer Dion Reitz, is quite the misanthrope. Despite some of her ideas having a point, the abuse she's apparently gone through and my personal enjoyment of both Boppin and one of her other stories, it's in Latin, I don't even want to try to pronounce this, is somewhat unfortunate to learn this. While I don't think it will affect my enjoyment I've had with their work so far, I'm curious, what do you think, as Boppin obviously had more of an impact on you than it did on me? I don't know much about that person. I found that out way after I played Boppin, about like her identity. Because if you go to the site, they have all this sort of transgender information. It's like, okay, wow, that's not what you normally expect on a typical game website. For me, it's not the. I usually don't research that much about like a creator or something unless I'm just head over heels into the content. I tend to kind of look more about works, but I can understand if you don't. So yeah, again, I'm not informed enough to cast judgment either way. I don't know much about the person. But I can understand where that could influence like your enjoyment of something. Like as an example, I've seen so many not only negative portrayals, but also really negative quotes by Phil Fish that it makes me not want to play Fez. Like, Fez looks like a very enjoyable game and everything, but the media and just the quotes have painted, and the quotes by himself. If it was just the media stuff, I might try to get more of the full story, but that creates this just a very not likable person that it makes me just not even want to get involved with that. So I can totally understand if that would kind of ruin your perception of a game or a movie or something like that. So I get where you're coming from, but for me, all I really knew was the game. I thought, wow, this is out there. It's very interesting. So that's all I was really judging. Okay, longer questions here. Do you have any plans to make sure that fixes are implemented for the civilization problems that you've addressed? Spreading ideas alone won't be enough to fix these issues, and I highly doubt some of your viewers are congressmen in hiding either. I mean no disrespect for what you're doing, but I want this to be as objective and realistic about this as possible, with nothing left unaccounted for. I admit I wasn't thinking about robots potentially destroying white-collar labor in its entirety until you mentioned it. What can we legitimately do about these issues in general? The plans are there, but whether or not we can put these plans into action is debatable at best. Yeah, it's a tricky thing. I mean, I actually didn't. It was kind of. I feel like it was almost sort of a more presentation rather than a rant. The next one, the next Ross rant's going to be a lot more ranty. It'll be game related too. Some of these, it's almost. I recognize the hopelessness of it, and this is just me kind of letting off steam. Other things I think might actually get influenced over time. The thing is, I've seen a lot of comments on things that have become sort of obvious to me that like they'll say, I never thought of that before. As far as things changing, I think the only thing I personally am like really going to try to change is the dead games thing. Even that's a long shot, but that's one I feel like I just can't ignore it at all. Or it just gets to me every time I see a game, especially one I'm interested in. And I think I may have just a real long shot chance of getting at least some of that changed. For others, I think the way to look at it is the future. We never know the future 100%. And you might find yourself in situations where you can change your approach to how you personally might change things in your life depending on the topic based on this knowledge you have. And hey, if it's really bothering you and you want to go the extreme route, take a look back at the Cult Tycoon episode, the Fellowship for Intentional Communities. Hey, some of those are people, they decided they can't handle some of these problems anymore. They feel like they have to do something. They realize they can't change the world, but hey, they can change their own small community and get people on board with that stuff. So, okay, I'm talking more generally, not just about the robot job things, because I'm going to cover some other topics. So the way to look at that is, some of these, for your own individual life, you might be able to change things and how this affects you personally. And just depends on how far you want to go, or just being aware of it might change your outlook. So while some are much more hopeless on the larger scale of things, I actually don't think the robot jobs one is. I think actually, the positive spin of that is it's a lot easier to ignore problems that are very gradual. Whereas if a problem just causes big disruption, society tends to be better at reacting to it and finding some sort of solution. So that one may not be so hopeless. It's just, sometimes this can be just like, here's a thing that might be coming, but I wouldn't despair too much. It's a matter of how much you want to do something about that, and I'll cover different topics. So again, for me, the one I'm just not dropping, and I literally am going to try to change is the killing games. Everything else, it just, you only have so much time and energy, so you gotta sort of pick your battles. What do you not like about cooking? Do you find it boring? Yes, and I find it time consuming. There's all kinds of things I want to be spending my time on. I like good meals, of course, but if I make sort of just a not so great meal, but it only takes me 10 minutes, then, that's another half hour I save being able to do something else. So, have you ever considered hosting an Unreal Tournament 2004 Onslaught match? I could do that maybe at some point. The question is, the big question, how do you determine who joins? Because there's probably going to be more people who want to play than there are slots available. That's what's behind PlanetSide. I want to try and get as many people to join as I can because I don't like leaving people out on this sort of thing. But yeah, I would consider that. Okay. Ross, being that you grew up in Virginia, what is your experience with guns? Did you grow up with guns at home or did you go shooting with any of your friends? I've had not a whole lot of experience with guns. In Boy Scouts, I got to fire some at a range. And then later when I did this sort of unofficial Student Police Academy course, I got to fire a Glock 22 at a range and a MP5. But my parents didn't have guns. I'm pretty sure I've fired more guns than both of my parents combined. Virginia, there obviously is like a hunter culture. In fact, I remember in Boy Scouts, like they would talk about how we wouldn't be able to go on hikes or camping trips during some times because it was hunting season. And I remember another person making a joke like, like how stupid will you have to be here to shoot other people? And somebody would say, yeah, what we should do is just get some deer skins, put them on top of us, and just crawl around on all fours, see how that goes. My view on guns is, I don't know, it's sort of neutral, I guess. Like when things come up about gun control, like I can kind of see both sides depending on the situation. Like I think one of the biggest things in favor of guns, in my opinion, is like with hunting in areas we've eliminated the natural predators. Hunters are an important part of the ecosystem because otherwise the deer or some of those other animals just got to get out of control, and it's really almost a mercy what they're doing by hunting them. And also, for especially for some poorer families I was aware of, for the cost, like for people who are just kind of getting by, for the cost of a few shells, you might be able to get some game and feed a family with meat for months. And that can be a huge money savings for some families. So at the same time, I think there are statistics showing that when there is more gun control, there tend to be less deaths related to it. But that's, again, out of all the topics I care about, that's really low on the list. So it's this is why I like some of these political discussions I want to avoid, because sometimes people will put you in a box, like if you say one thing and they assume all these things about you. So yeah, gun stuff, I don't have a whole lot of experience. I have fired some guns. I don't own any myself, but I'm just sort of neutral on it, I guess. All right. If I recall correctly, at some point you mentioned that the game dungeon wouldn't just focus on obscure games anymore. Does this mean we might get to see some more well-known classic game titles? Like he's mentioning Quake, Doom, Fallout, Unreal. I have plans in work. Getting stuff like that out is part of this 3-month plan I have for myself to just try and get caught up on everything. Yeah, the easiest answer is kind of. That's the best thing. That's the best answer. Like some games I absolutely want to talk about. Like I do plan on doing game dungeons on Deus Ex, the series, prior to the new one coming out. For others, though, I have plans to get something. It may not be game dungeon exactly, but it can be quite close. That's the best way to put it. And I really think I can increase my output, but I got to get better at like delegating some things to people willing to help, and that comes back to me trying to get on top of replying to everyone. So there's a whole lot of stuff to look forward to video-wise. I'll say that. How did you start becoming aware about peak oil? I always sort of knew something about that. Like I knew that we used like an incredible amount of oil, but it never really hit me like how we managed to keep that going. That actually started when I did the oils well episode for civil protection. That was actually it was a machinima environmental contest, And I felt bad because this group had prizes and everything, and it just had so few submissions. I was thinking, oh man, I should do something for this. So I tried to pick a topic like, like what's maybe like the biggest topic I could pick that's just really going to have an impact on us in the near future. And at the time, I thought it might have been oil. And I did some research on it, and I realized, like, wow, this is utterly massive. It's insane. We're not preparing for this better than we are. So, and again, I want to emphasize, peak oil does not mean we're going to run out of oil. It just means that demand is going to outstrip supply, and that can cause economic bombs once that starts happening, and just because our whole civilization runs on oil. We don't need to run out of oil in order to have an oil crisis situation, is what it comes down to. So, do you have plans for doing something similar to Galaxy Gulp for Unreal? I assume it means Unreal 4 engine, which I'm gonna do the movie in. Not exactly, but I might do some shorts if we're starting to get like a real flow within it production-wise, kind of maybe leading up to the movie. Or maybe one or two like real small shorts that are sort of like just sort of promotional material for the movie, but they could just be sort of like a real contained side story or something that sort of ties into the movie. It would just be like, 2-minute video or something like that, but I might do something like that. I'll see. Someone's asking if I'm still in touch with other mind makers like Ian Riley, Robin Donnell, Jared O'Brien. I was never super in touch with them, actually. Though Jared O'Brien, I have a theory Jared O'Brien knows almost every person involved with making Source Machinima. So I don't know. He's in many... He seems to know everyone. I don't know. The others, I was never like super in touch with, but I emailed them because they had their own following. I wanted to give them a cameo in Freeman's Mind, but let's see. Next question. Someone's asking, in the BitBop 2 review, you talk about a short film, which is the close-up of the screaming person is from. Have you tried to uncover that as well? No, I haven't. I only even know about that because it's in the credits of BitBop too. So I have to, I would have to hunt down the friend of Stuart Riffle to get in touch with that. I don't know. For me, it's, you know what? Knowing nothing about this film, I will say there are a lot of experimental college films that aren't really worth watching. Like if you've seen The Ring, I thought that was hilarious that the film professor was saying, "Yep, student film, all right," when he's watching it. So I don't really have any motivation to hunt that down. Whereas BitBop, for its faults, it definitely had some humor to it and a certain amount of mysticism. So I got into that. What emulators do you use for older games, newer games, DOSBox, MAME, etc.? Well, yeah, for DOS games, I do use DOSBox, although I use a front end for it called Defend Reloaded. That makes it a lot easier. Although I will say, if you've never used DOS before, you might still find it a little daunting. Like knowing all the configurations options. But I hate having to use command line stuff when I can avoid it. So I love being able to just hit a checkbox and just put in a couple values. And then the shortcut's already there and just hit run. And it works. For Carnival, I think it was MAME UI 64. I think that was the only one that worked with Carnival. And the others it wouldn't run. For Commodore 64, I used WinVice. For Windows 95 games and some Windows XP games, like Polaris Snowcross. Yeah, some people thought I was running XP when I did Polaris Snowcross. I was running an emulated Windows XP. I used VMware for all of that. I tried VirtualBox, but I remember not having as much luck with it, though. We'll see. And then I think that's about it for emulators I've used. Oh yeah, I used it. I forget the name of the Amiga one I used for Zany Golf. But, just basic research on that. But yeah, that's my main advice. Use the front end for DOSBox. It'll make your life easier. What are your thoughts on modern web design? I feel like websites are getting too heavy these days, tons of JavaScript for no reason. It's kind of slowing down development of the internet. I'm not technically proficient enough to have a good comment on that one way or the other, but I will say I do think we're sometimes neglecting fundamentals of user interface design where you bury features almost everyone is going to want, but it looks more slick to have them out of the way, or you have to go through 3 different menus to get to them. Like YouTube is a perfect example of that. I used to be able, if I was logged into YouTube, I could see my new messages 1 click. Just 1 click, that's it. And then now it takes, let's see, I have to, 1, 2, 3. I think it takes 4 clicks, but it might only be 3. See, that's a real quantitative thing you can measure. Like, okay, this is objectively worse because it takes, if you know what you're doing, it takes you more time to get there. And this is not a weird function, you know, like only show me subscriptions every Wednesday or something, you know, something that, this is check new messages. That's a pretty basic function, you know, so, yeah, that's one of the reasons I'm going to be slow on redesigning the website is I want to make sure I'm not losing functionality and the sites and the changes make sense, you know, because I used to go to PC Gamer, well, I still do a lot, and their old format, okay, here's a new article, it's chronologically, go back if you want. Now it's like, okay, go down the first half of this page for newer ones, then go over here, and then this bottom part is where the remainder is, and we're gonna have all sorts of random crap thrown in there. It's like, God, what? Yeah, it looks slick, but I mean, you gotta factor in people who are gonna come into your site regularly, I think. So, I don't know. I think, you know, while we're on the topic, if there's any user interface experts, this is almost something I put in my birthday request video. I use Lightstep on my own Windows, on my own desktop. If you feel like you're a user interface expert and you have like suggestions for like the most efficient and kind of clean looking, I mean, not clean looking interface, you know, just sort of smooth, you know, you're welcome to give me suggestions because I'm happy to learn a new way of doing things if once you know the new way, it's better. Like it's faster, you can get the stuff more efficiently. But, you know, I feel like that's not really factored into all kinds of things, including websites. Okay, should keep moving. So many questions. Okay, again, this person's mentioning Fusion Fall as a game that got shut down, and apparently there are efforts being made to bring it back to life. Again, you know, I think this shutting down game things, I think it's just going to be affecting more and more people. So it's worth kind of raising the awareness of it. And again, I feel like it's insane that this should have to fall on the backs of super dedicated fans reverse engineering it, because reverse engineering things, that's not like changing a little config file in your game. No, that's, you know, in Secret World, I compared it to learning Sumerian. I think it's about on that level. So, okay. This is a long one, but it's a good one. I noticed many of the questions you answer to are neither related to your videos nor to video games or machinima. To be more specific, I noticed you often had the chance to give advice to people wondering about the best choices to make in life. Like sleep, high school, how to work, so on. Let's see. This intrigues me on a sociological point of view. This makes me think that you've become popular enough to be sort of like actors who become... sorry, okay, I'm starting over my words here. This makes me think that you've become popular enough to be sort of like actors who became politicians as they had a reliable fan base that listens to them. On the spectrum of people... I should have abridged this. On the spectrum of people currently watching your video, it has become interesting in more ways than one. Most people probably don't care about what you think or have nothing to ask you, but if you think you're worthy enough to ask you advice on how to lead one's life, this is pretty interesting. How do you feel about the questions you receive regarding articles? How do you feel about the questions you receive regarding advices on how to live? Also, do you think there are clues about a wider phenomenon on a sociological aspect? Okay. Uh, you know, I'm still figuring this out as I go. Like this whole chat is, you know, the purpose behind these chats is to let people know, you know, I'm still alive, I'm still working on things, and I'm not like inaccessible. Because, you know, there'll be people you'll be fans of, but, you know, they'll be so popular, or they might be like part of like a corporation or institution where you're never going to have a chance to communicate with them. And, you know, I want to let people know, you know, I'm not like that. I'm trying my best. You know, I can fall way behind responding to people, but hey, I can always put aside an hour or two per month and just try to get on top of stuff. And that's what this is about. Beyond that, it's sort of the direction the fans want to take it in. I mean, there's some things I mean, if I don't like the direction something is going, I obviously am not going to go along with that. But I mean, hey, that's what the planet side session is going to be about. Is, you know, hey, another avenue. Maybe people can have some fun with this. And hey, if people want to ask life advice and it's not something, it's something I guess I can talk about, sure, you know. So I guess the answer to this is, you know, it's kind of what you guys want to make of it also. It is nothing really set in stone that it has to be this way. I do have zero intentions of running for any sort of political office. So I'll say that. Again, the only thing I'm trying to get changed is the killing games. And even that, if somebody else was just really doing a great job of it and there wasn't really much need for me to help, that would be great because I'd rather work on other stuff. It's just that this is one of those things I just can't. It's impacting me too much now as a gaming enthusiast. I always like to emphasize there are more important issues because these, at the end of the day, these are just games. But as far as gaming goes, I don't think it gets more important than that. So, but for the sociological phenomena, I mean, where do people want to take this? This might evolve into something more enjoyable to watch or participate in. I don't know. So you guys can let me know. That's what this is. This is me stumbling around in the darkness, trying to, you know, have kind of better relationship here with fans and just kind of, I don't know, make the most of what I have, I guess. Okay, this person had a bunch. This person had 8 questions. Let's see. Okay, several of these are asking me my opinion of what do the Polish people think. You know, I live in Poland, but I don't think I really have authority or knowledgeable enough to say what Polish people think about this, aside from really broad things. So I think that'd be really presumptuous of me to speak for the Polish people of what they think on something. It would have to just be so obvious to me that, like I will say, I think the Polish people are better at celebrating New Year's Eve than Americans are. Like there are just fireworks all over the place for just hours in like every neighborhood. So I can make generalizations like that, you know, stuff that I've clearly observed. Like I think there might even be, look, hey, this is a challenge, but I think they might even be better at celebrating that than Americans celebrate Independence Day. That's how much it is on New Year's Eve. So beyond that, I you know, I'm not Polish, so it's not really my place to speak for them. Let's see. Okay, well, this is a good one. How much do you care about character AI in games? Ever since I played Fear, all other AI can't even compare. Fear certainly does seem like a high watermark for AI. It was great. It's like, with AI, I of course like seeing good AI, but at the same time, I realize how difficult that is to do, so I tend to be sort of forgiving on that. So that's my general attitude about it. But man, I am not. Fear had really great AI. I mean, I think they used some tricks, but it definitely wasn't just all enemies running at you. Okay, let's see. With the amazing success of City Skylines, the coming brilliance that is Planet Coaster, do you think we're entering a silver age of sim games? And is there a genre of sim games that you feel deserve to have a new iteration, reimagining, or sequel? I've never played a whole lot of sim games. I think we're entering a renaissance of just gaming in general because we're seeing all these more niche genres that big publishers didn't want to fund for a while, but then with crowdfunding or better marketing now, there'll be all these hardcore fanatics saying, "Yeah, bring on more games like that." And I think it's great. You can really sort of specialize in the game that you really want to play yourself. For me, I don't know. I think I wouldn't mind. Again, I completely understand people are sick of it, but hey, I like sort of zombies, survival stuff, sims like that. I have played, I think it was Rebuild 1 and 2. I wouldn't mind seeing a more in-depth version of that, but I tend to like sort of strategy games or over sim games more. I mean, real-time strategy. But I don't know, it just depends. Sometimes I'm enamored with a certain theme that had never occurred to me that I thought, oh yeah, this could be amazing. And like that, I think what it comes down to is I like being able, not always, but for a lot of games, I like being able to beat them. So I have like an end game scenario, I get my cinematic or complete the story. And with sim games, you just sort of go on until you decide when you're done. And I don't know, I like having a goal to achieve with that, so. Okay, another what do you think of this game? I think I answered this one, but just in case, it's quick. How much of your work is backed up? I know a couple of people who lost a lot due to either their computer dying or an external hard drive crashing. For all important work I do, it's always on a mirror RAID array, so it means that there's a drive always copying what the other one does. For long-term storage, I move that to external redundant drives. So yeah, I mean, like here, I have one right here. So, and I could just throw this one out a window and I'd still have the files on another one. So I tend to be a little paranoid about that. At some point, I'll probably do like a cloud backup solution in addition to that. But that's another one of those things I haven't gotten around to yet. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, see, I've been going fast as I can. I'm still about an hour into it here. Have you considered getting custom music made for any of your videos? Are there plans for it with the movie? Yes, with the movie, there's a composer I have in mind, but there's room for more than one composer. But that's still a long ways off. So I mean, the music is one of the late steps in production, unless it's a scene that really depends on that. But I think the movie will have some. I think the movie will be able to support multiple composers because different thing. But I'm going to be super picky too because I'm a soundtrack freak. So I know because I'm going to have a pretty good idea of what I want the music to sound like. For the other videos, yeah, you can always. In fact, I keep a log of when people send me music, and I sort of browse through what they have, and I'll make notes of like what style they have. Uh-oh. Okay, we got cut off from Twitch. I have no idea what happened. It wasn't my internet this time though, so that's something. Okay, the last question I was on, yeah, custom music. Yeah, for the normal videos, I would love more custom music. In fact, that sometimes holds up me being able to release something but again, it has to be the right tone because I don't want like this sort of sad or real dramatic stuff if it's just sort of me talking about something and comic tone to it. So you can always send me more offers, and again, I keep a log of what is, I make me a log of who sends me what their style is, and I think, but that's another thing I really need to get on top of because it's actually held up some videos from being released sooner. Whereas if I had, where I knew like, oh yeah, this music's good, this is good to go, then I could have been out with the video sooner. In general, the stuff, not always, but for most videos, the material I want is just sort of laid back, but sort of upbeat. You can listen to some of the music I've had in other videos, especially like the most anticipated games one had some good music in that one, but so yeah, I'm happy for more music and custom music. It's just a matter of what can I get in time. If it's ready to go, then I'm good to go. So that's why I really need to get on top of all these messages people are sending me, because then I can be prepared and just think, oh, okay, I'll pick one of these 5 songs. They're all great. And then I can have the video out sooner. So yeah, custom music, you can always send stuff, but it has to match the mood I want. So what's the best city you've lived in? And then he asks, what's the worst city you've lived in? It's LA, isn't it? Yeah, for worst city, I'd go with LA. It's because it's not. I only went there because I thought I would be able to get more videos made, and that ended up not being the case. I tend to not like. I mean, I tend to like areas with a lot of forest and colder climates, which is the exact opposite of what LA is. Uh, the only things I liked about LA were that, a lot of people, so you can meet all kinds of people for different events and stuff, and all the best Mexican food you can imagine. And there's different types of Mexican food. Like there's just you'll never want for good Mexican food in LA, and that's probably true of most of Southern California. So that's for best one. I don't think I've lived in the areas I really want to. Again, because I'd like just area with just lots of forest, kind of nearby. It doesn't have to be like in the middle of it or anything. But uh, I mean, I don't know. I would say Baton Rouge was pretty cool, but it's so hot, just so incredibly hot. It doesn't. My cold tolerance is way better than my heat tolerance. I mean, I could be a freaking berserker warrior in terms of my cold tolerance, but heat, I can just, I can't handle it for the long term. But I liked a lot of Baton Rouge beyond that. Some of the cities I've lived in are kind of depressing. My place got broken into when I was in Pittsburgh, so that didn't leave especially fond memories, but I'll see. I guess it's the best ones to be determined, I guess. Ross, I remember you stated that you won't reveal your fans games that you want to play so that they won't send you a million copies of them. What do you think about making a section on your website with a list of games that you already own? Or you can give your fans a link to your Steam profile so they could see what games you are currently owning. And somebody else is saying, would you consider a system that lists games desired and allows one and only one donation that prevents further donations? Geez, I don't know. It's like a tricky question because, when I buy a game, I almost always get it on sale. And it might be a while before I get around to that. And a lot of games I'm looking forward to, they're still early access, so they're still not even ready. And like I bought a copy of Miscreated for $7. I checked it just briefly, and I was thinking, yeah, this is definitely early access. It still needs more time in the oven. Or even finished games. Like System Shock 2 is one of my all-time favorite games. But, when I played it, I guess, early 2000s, and I thought, yeah, this is kind of neat, but I'll come back to this later. I think, yeah, this is good, but I'll just come back to it later because I was busy with other stuff. I only played a couple hours into it. I think I only got to the medical bay. I stopped playing. It was like 3 or 4 years later I came back to it. Then I finally finished it, and yeah, this is one of my all-time favorite games now. So I would feel like maybe some people will feel like they're getting kind of robbed. If they bought this and same time next year, oh yeah, I still haven't played that yet. I don't really want to kind of create those feelings with fans, or for just game donation in general. It may not be a game I'm interested in, or it may be one I have a copy of. And you mentioned Steam profile. I have more than one actually, because I got a little paranoid about that after sort of a test one I had just got corrupted. I couldn't log into it at all again. But there was nothing important on that one. It was just like Half-Life 2 and no, it wasn't even Half-Life 2. It was like Half-Life on it. And and I also usually try to get non-Steam versions when I can, just to avoid DRM, but it just depends. When that's an option. Obviously, some games that's not an option. I don't know. I guess I kind of want to keep the obligations low if someone does purchase a game for me, because it's I, I'm already real busy, so I really want to be careful about taking on any additional obligations to people. And I don't want people to feel kind of robbed or ripped off. Yeah, that's why with the I realize it's not as fun as the game donations, but with like the just with the monetary ones, like on the site, I really do use all that for rent, food, everything. There is no doubt whatsoever in my mind that does not go to use. And again, that's all for just food and rent. Yeah, I said that in the Begathon videos. So that helps me out more. But I don't know, the game donation situation I can maybe figure out, especially if I can figure out a way to kind of increase my output talking about different games too. I feel like that's really something important also, because right now it's still kind of slow with just Game Dungeon. But okay, but I realize I've left this kind of vague, but I promise what I have planned is not another Let's Play thing. So I want to alleviate fears along those lines. But right now, yes, getting new games I'm interested in is fun, but or hey, I mentioned The Crew. That's another one I bought. My system's not up to snuff for that one yet, because you kind of want full speed for a racing game. Again, that's another example of something where that's the reason I might be a while before I get around to playing it. So I can consider it, but it's just not a priority, and I think I have to be real careful about it. Okay, I keep moving. Let's see. Hey, Ross, are you going to use assets from different places in the movie? Will there be a consistency problem in the art because some of the assets sticking out? That's something I'm going to be extremely careful of. That's another reason I don't want the assets looking too good. I mean, partially to not have an uncanny valley issue, but if they look, I want to make sure that they're not too finely developed. And that's another reason that the more assets I can take from a single game, like which is probably going to be The Witcher, maybe some of Witcher 2, they already have that figured out, because it's all the same game, so all the assets are going to look similar. So that if we find that we need other assets on top of that, I'm going to be explaining to like modelers and or texture artists, we kind of want to get this ballpark of the look for it. So yeah, that definitely is a danger if you're not staying on top of that, because then you have things that look great right next to something that looks like it could be out of a Nintendo 64 game, So you really do have to have some sort of, I can't think of the word I'm looking for. It's not continuity, it's just, well, some sort of standard with the visual appearance. So I do have a plan for that. Okay. Let's see. Well, someone's asking what I think about the resurgence of roguelikes. Similar to the resurgence of sim games. I think it's great you can have all these specialized games and that the mainstream game publishers wouldn't want to put money into. More games for everybody. It's great. This is kind of a heavy question, but what are your thoughts on the war on drugs and how we handle drug offenders and dealers in today's society? Well, again, especially judging from my appearance, you may not believe me, but I don't take any drugs. So this stuff never directly affects me. I mean, they could have the death penalty for smoking weed. It wouldn't directly affect me. But, looking at the data, it does, U.S. has one of the highest prison populations. It does seem kind of crazy. I would much rather have someone in jail for breaking and entering or assault with a deadly weapon than for someone who smoked a joint. In fact, I think in some countries, they like drug offenses aren't even crimes. They're like considered like, social disorders where instead of going to jail or something, you go to rehab, which that makes a lot more sense to me. Having lots of classes in the criminal justice system courses, not obviously I haven't been processed a whole lot through the criminal justice system. Our criminal justice system is extremely imperfect. So, the more obvious things you can do to fix it, the better. However, there can sometimes be some political blowback to that because, look, there's a whole lot of infrastructure invested into the drug war. So that might be one of those things that may or may not see much progress in. But, you know, keeping people out of prison who don't need to be there is obviously a good goal. And I think a lot of drug users fall under that category. You know, rehab, you know, have the punishment fit the crime. Oh, you did too many drugs. Okay, go to rehab. Well, there you go. I think for dealers and stuff, it gets more complicated. But again, sort of lower on my list, lower on my priority list of topics I'm particularly interested in or have a lot to say about. Okay, what do you think of this game? Here's a two-part question I stole from a Yahtzee Let's Play question answer. Is there a game with a good story but gameplay so bad you cannot recommend it? And the reverse, game that had good gameplay but the story's so bad that you cannot recommend it. Well, the latter one I'd say no. It's just you have to let people know the story is garbage. Well, again, I'm interested in The Crew. I suspect, from what I've heard, The Crew's might fit that description where I have not heard good things about the story to that. Or hey, Sonic the Hedgehog games. How many of those do not have a great story, but some of them do have good gameplay? There's a perfect example. So a bad story doesn't mean you shouldn't play a game. It just means you need to be prepared mentally. As for story, good, but gameplay bad, I'd have to think about it more. One I can think of is a graphic adventure game I played, Sinking Island. The atmosphere is great. The story was kind of interesting. I didn't finish it. The gameplay was bad, I thought. And I literally got into a situation where I could not finish it. Not that I couldn't figure out how to finish it, but I hit a game-breaking bug where, you know, you could not progress. So I'm sure there's a lot more like that. But hey, that's what Let's Plays are for. You know, somebody out there is willing to suffer through it, and they usually put up a video of it. Then you can see the story. Don't have to endure the bad gameplay. So, let's see. Okay, some people asked ones. I think we're coming close to the end here. Yeah, some of these questions, they weren't like the what game is this, but they're ones where I'm not going to have an easy answer off the top of my head. I would have to sit and think about it for 10 minutes, so that doesn't work so well for this kind of format. So yeah, people can start asking questions now in the chat. If you do, put 3 equal signs before your question, just so it makes it easier for me to distinguish it from the just general chatter. I haven't, I'm probably not going to be going back up to look at previous ones. So, you know, this way I can kind of stay a little more on top of things. I'm sure people will still outpace me. And I may not go as long as last time. I realized in some of these longer sessions, I tend to sort of lose my steam after a while, and I get a little more disoriented. So if I sense that's happening, I'm going to try and wind it down. Okay. Ross, if you were a weapon, what would you be? Think like spirit animal. I think it would be, okay, if I was a weapon, I think it would be something blunt that wouldn't necessarily have to be lethal, you know, like maybe sort of like some sort of like mace without the sharp edges. So, you know, if you want, you can use sort of like the wooden end of that to knock somebody out or knock them in line. But, you know, if you have to, you can smash some heads with that. So something you have some flexibility on the lethality of it, I think. Okay. What is your opinion on early access games? I think I might have answered it. Do you personally think they're worth it? I think it really varies. I mean, maybe I'll do a Ross Rants about this. I think all the criticisms about early access games tend to be legitimate. However, I think more good has come out of having early access than not having it. So that's my easiest answer for it. Okay. Yeah. Who is your favorite director? Okay, this is shameful because I watch many movies, but a lot of the time I don't necessarily pay attention to who directed it. So I'll just think, oh, that was a great movie, you know, and then I don't tend to explore into it much. Or like obviously a real film buff should have a little more pay more attention to that sort of thing. But you know, I didn't major in film in school, so I tend to notice directors later. I was like, oh, so that person directed that. So, and sometimes like directors, they'll make good movies, but then sometimes the subject matter I'm really not interested in some of their other movies, but really like this one. So I'm sorry, I don't have an easy answer for who's my favorite director. Would you ever consider opening up an arcade also by the name of Ross's Game Dungeon if the movie were successful enough? It's not really one of my visions. I mean, I think, look, I think if there are people who want to, I think there's plenty of people who'd like to see some sort of arcades come back. Like I mentioned before, fighting games. I think people miss out by not having fighting games in an arcade environment because, you know, it's awesome having that crowd next to you behind like really good players. So, but you know, we're in sort of different times. I mean, there's all sorts of eccentric things I would do if I had a bunch of money, but I don't know if setting up an arcade would be one of them. But if somebody wanted to make one in that name, sure, you know. Okay. Ross, have you heard or have read of the SCP Foundation wiki? That name sounds so familiar, but I don't know what it is. Let me check. Okay. Um, let's see. Website special containment procedures. Okay. I'm sorry. Wikipedia doesn't make it super obvious what this is. So yeah, no. That's the easiest answer. Okay. How many Moon Gaming episodes do you plan to use the future Ross in? Well, that's up to him, isn't it? Okay. Ever more? What do you think? So many like, what do you think about this game? Like, I kind of want to get more videos out before I'm like talking more about that because then it's almost like I'm repeating myself later when I do the videos. Uh, oh, I recently saw What's Up Tiger Lily. Yeah, I mentioned that one before. He thought it was hilarious. Love to know what your thoughts are on this movie. Yeah, it is hilarious. I don't know if it's the first, but I think it's definitely one of the first examples of, you know, Woody Allen basically bought the entire rights to this sort of kind of crappy Japanese spy movie and then just replaced all the dialogue. So just sort of what similar to what Mystery Science Theater 3000 does, and similar to what I did with Freeman's Mind. And it's a great example. You know, normally the first examples aren't always the best, but in this case, it's hilarious. So, Russ, do you play an instrument? Not really. I can monkey around with piano. Like, there's some themes I can play. Like I can do part of like the Mortal Kombat theme, the Tetris theme, uh, the Duke Nukem theme. Although I don't know many chords, so I need to develop it more. If I At some point, if I get more space, I want to get a music keyboard, and then I really want to learn some of the Castlevania tracks, like especially like Bloody Tears, which I realize its skill level is like so much higher. But if that's like all you're practicing, then maybe you could learn it. I actually saw a video just like 2 days ago where this guy he's dressed up like Mozart, and he has two pianos on either side of him and is playing one of the Symphony of the Night tracks, and he's still doing a pretty good job. So yeah, I'm very amateur piano slash keyboard. That's about it. Okay, let's see. I have a better idea for browsing through the questions. Okay, sorry, I'm losing track again. Okay, yeah, here we go. Is Eddie inspired by a real person? No, not directly. The Jesse is, though, in Freeman's mind. How do you feel about YouTubers advertising themselves on bigger channels? It pisses me off, but I want your opinion. I guess I'm not. I, okay, this either doesn't seem like that big a deal to me, or else I'm not familiar with like the context this is going on with. Because, like, say you, like, I mean, if you look at like the co-optional podcast, he's had like big names like Boogie 2988 on there. I mean, sure. What's really? I guess I don't see what the problem is with that. I don't like how YouTube seems to sort of funnel towards just a certain specific people, because it's good to have some variety. But for all I know, that's benefiting me. But it's still, there should be more than like 5 voices or something like that. But maybe there's some controversy going on that I don't realize this is going on with. But I don't know. I can understand the perspective. Already huge people don't necessarily need to be bigger. But if they're just like a guest or something, I mean, I don't see. That doesn't seem like that big a problem to me. Why didn't you use the HEV and help the Spencers in Freeman's mind? Well, I've answered this one a lot of times. It's because I was trying to make this as real. I was trying to have Freeman treat this all as real. And that's sort of a fourth wall breaking thing, because then it reminds you this is just a game. You don't magically heal yourself in the real world. If you've been shot and like, that's it. You're down for a while. So I just went with his suit's bulletproof, because that's the only remotely plausible explanation. If you're shot in the arm, that's it. You're not going to be getting good shots for weeks, maybe months afterwards. So it's just me trying to make the game world sort of fit with the real world. Are you in the writing stages of the movie, or have you started recording? I'm both beyond writing and I'm at writing, and recording's later thing. See, that's just it. People may not realize recording is actually very small amount of what goes into a production, especially of an animated 3D animated video. So much of it is assets and animation and everything. Writing is, I mean, not writing, but like recording and voice acting. It's such a small part in terms of time. I mean, yes, it's the part everybody's going to notice, and it's still very important, but it's such a small part. So I'm between writing and other production stuff, but that's something that was the other thing on my 3-month plan I want to do. I want to be maybe not completed 100%, but clear, winding up the script for the movie on that by 3 months, and getting some other stuff done. Because again, I've run into too many situations where like, oh, I need to work on this, but oh man, I need to get this game dungeon out. And I'm like, oh my God, this is taking so much more time than I thought it would. But man, if I cut too many corners, it's just not going to be good. And then I end up where it just keeps getting pushed back. So I really want to just kind of fight back against that, because that trend tends to happen too much. Okay. Oh, the person's asking why not tag me in the Twitch chat. That's because I'm looking at this on IRC, so that way if the questions fly by, it's not a problem. The three equals signs are better. Okay. When are you going to do the Game Dungeon follow-up? I don't know. I guess I should get that. Maybe I can work on that this month or next month. I guess I should be getting around to that sometime, though. Again, it just sort of, Darkspore is one I had to get out like just immediately, because I wanted to give people a chance to play it if they hadn't. But others, and some will be sort of seasonal related, like Halloween or Christmas. But other than that, it's just sort of I decide what to work on next. Follow-ups tend to take more work because I'm pulling material from a lot of different games that I have to go back in and running again. But I should get on that at some point. Yeah, somebody's mentioning they sent me cloud backup information. Some people sent me those. although I think one person sent me a real good one. However, a lot of these cloud backup storage solutions, whole lot of them, they say unless the drive you're backing up is connected to within 30 days, they don't keep the data. And that's no good for me because I have all these external backups. I might only access them once every 3 months. And I don't want to have to re-upload that. So there has to be you might be surprised. They don't like to advertise that because that makes them look bad, but a whole lot of them say that. So you got to be careful about that. I mean, at least for my purposes, because I want to be able to back that up. If I haven't accessed that in a year, but I'm still paying them, well, then I expect the files to still be there at some point. This one I'm debating whether to answer or not. I'll see if it comes up again later. Okay. Who's a character from any medium that you identify with? Geez, I don't know if I've ever identified with somebody like 100%. I mean, because they'll be different. Well, actually, I saw it not too long ago. Okay, this one, I'll say this because it's more recent in my memory. I saw this with my girlfriend for her birthday because she wanted to see Deadpool, but it wasn't out yet for her birthday. So it ended up not being a great choice for her, but we watched The Revenant. And the main character in that, I can absolutely relate to his will to live. Okay, like I haven't had to go through anything that extreme, obviously, but that character has a similar will to live as I do. Or, but well, hey, I've mentioned in the Begathon, Dr. Frankenstein, he gets the movie version of Dr. Frankenstein. He gets obsessed with his projects and just wants to make it happen. I can relate to that. Let's see. I like characters that take really straight. I love characters in situations where there's like a lot of drama that they just take the no nonsense, no, this is what's going to fix the problem approach and just go off and act on it, whether the rest of the cast is on board with that or not. Let's see. I don't know. It's one of those things I'd have to think about more of. Let's see. How much programming do you know? Almost none, very little. I think at one point at school I knew some of BASIC and I forgot that. I mentioned Lightstep. That's not really programming, but you do have to do like a whole lot of configuration. That's sort of like halfway between editing a config file versus actual programming. But I'm not a programmer. What are your thoughts on augmented reality? I think it has a lot of potential use, especially for like different occupations. For me personally, it's not something I'm not interested in, whereas I'm just waiting for virtual reality. At the time of this video, the Vive's going to be launching real soon. And then the Rift is already out, but I got to wait and see what the reviews and user reports say on this stuff, because software compatibility and all sorts of little things, they're bugs that people may discover, are important. But I'm super looking forward to that. But augmented reality, I think it could be very useful, but doesn't mean much for me personally. Okay, if you played this. Oh, who is your favorite president of the United States? And he's saying if it's Teddy, who is second? Yeah, Teddy Roosevelt, easily favorite president of the United States. Who is second? Second's tougher. I don't know. Well, I mean, an easier answer. Easy answer might be something like FDR. Geez, he got elect at more terms than any other president, so he's pretty popular for what he did. And some people will debate this, but I think there's a lot to show he brought us out of the Depression. Another popular answer is Lincoln because he freed the slaves. I don't know who would be second. Okay, let's go for presidents who maybe didn't do the most good, but were maybe the most interesting. On that criteria, I think maybe Andrew Jackson is certainly an interesting president. I mean, he got in so many pistol duels with other people for just like insulting his wife or something. Um, but yeah, well, that's just it. Theodore Roosevelt to me is such an obvious winner because he did so much good for the country, and he was just incredibly interesting because he would play like he would play volleyball with his staff, who I think didn't really like this, with a freaking medicine ball, which is like a really heavy weighted ball. He would go on hikes in completely straight lines, just through the thicket. He got shot while giving a speech, shot in the lung while giving a campaign speech, kept going, finished his speech, then went and got medical attention. I mean, he's just an animal. It's so I don't know. Everybody else has been just. I mean, George Washington's also a popular one because yeah, with George Washington, they wanted to make him king. Like they were going to make him, but he's the one who sort of turned that down and said that we should only president for a while. The people were elected, then let somebody else take it. So we could have had a monarchy to some extent if we wanted to. But okay, let's see. What are some more? Ross, will you allow people to make subtitles for your movie once you complete it? Absolutely. This goes for any of my videos. This person says they plan to make Italian subtitles too. If you have subtitles that are just good to go, you can either post them in the forum or email Accursed Farm Stuff, like 2 S's, of farms and stuff, at gmail.com. And it'll help get processed by project manager so it gets up. If it was just up to me, you would get subtitles every freaking 9 months and then that's it. Like I wouldn't have time for other things. But this way they'll get up if you email them to that address. Any video you want to make subtitles of, you can. Though you should check and see what's already been made first. You mentioned in a recent video that you got in trouble your junior year of high school, something that you did your freshman year. What did you do that they bothered with it 2 years later? This is a long story, but okay, the short half of it, because I don't have time to explain all of this, is like I did break into the high school during the weekend. I came in through a ventilation shaft. Actually, this is gonna sound like the geekiest thing because I was dead. I left a book in my locker that I really needed for an assignment. I was gonna freaking fail, and I realized I forgot it, and the school was closed. And it's like I need to get that book. Like I need it so badly. And I circled the high school for hours, and I finally found a way into it. Again, it wasn't really through a shaft. It was just through an opening where I was just able to sort of pry it open and get him into the boiler room, and then made my way into the school lockers, and was able to avoid the motion detection sensors they had around the school. That led to other problems later. So it wasn't really just that. In fact, it caused this cascade of events. Like the stuff I got in trouble for, they weren't really after me. It's more like the stuff I did caused a chain reaction with other people that just created bigger problems for them. So, yeah, again, that was freshman year. And I want to emphasize the trouble I got into it was, I want to say like 95% of it. Like I never was bullying people or anything like that. It was always me just getting bored in class. That's almost always what it came down to, especially French class. So like I would just go in there and the clock would just stop, and I would just try and find ways to stay entertained. So. Ross, can you recommend me a medieval fantasy movie? Uh, well, one of them I'm gonna give the recommendation when I do the game dungeon on it, so I don't want to say which one. Yeah, I'm gonna have a movie-based game on Game Dungeon at some point. And I'll definitely talk about the movie also. Another one, what? I remember liking it as a kid. If I were to go back, it might be really cheesy. I have no idea. But Krull is one you can check out. It's sort of sci-fi fantasy, but it's sort of feels medieval. I mean, this Camelot, they did that. It's Patrick Stewart and part of it. I'm pretty sure. I don't know. I mean, I get the feeling that's sort of. I watched some of Game of Thrones, but I couldn't keep up with it. Just I don't know. Like I'll say after one character died, to me it's like, what's the point now? That's kind of how I felt like it. I won't give any spoilers beyond that, but let's see. So somebody's asking like, how is the assisting writing progress going? That's another thing I need to catch up on. Like again, my level of neglect has reached crisis level. So this month I'm finishing up the game dungeon, gonna make the PlanetSide video. I'll try my best to make something else, but the rest of the time I'm just gonna spend just trying to catch up on everything I've been neglecting. So that's all I'm guaranteeing for this month, of those 2 videos. And let's see. How long until we get to see some form of the movie? I don't know, man. I'm sorry. It would be a lot faster if I made no other videos. I'll say that. So, but I think people still want to see other videos in the meantime, so it's juggling. So that means it leads to longer production than you normally expect from a project where that's all they're doing. So there's no perfect solution, because of course I'd like to just make the video, but then everybody wondering what the hell happened to Ross, you know? So, all right, I should start catching up on with the questions. How many unread emails do you currently have? Probably at least 100. And then I have many more that I still need to respond to. Actually, probably much more than 100, but most of those are for the birthday video, which again, thanks. I knew this might happen when I made that video. That's why I was a little reluctant to, but hey, it's a gift that keeps on giving, you know? It's great. Now I don't need anything for next birthday. What do you think about the conflict in Syria? I am very not well informed about events in the Middle East, so my opinion wouldn't be worth anything. So how do you see? Have you ever been to Norway? If not, do you want to? Maybe. I haven't been to Norway, no. Russ, thoughts on Obsidian Entertainment? I have to remember what games that. I'm pretty sure somebody asked me this in another video chat. This feels very familiar. So maybe check the previous ones, or somebody can write in the comments which one to check. Russ, do you have any old games that you hate? Yes. I'll cover some of them on Game Dungeon. But I will say, Arcade America, I liked it initially, but man, like once I started playing it, I really started hating playing it. The gameplay was not fun. What are some of your favorite and hated tropes? I have to think. Okay, I'm feeling my brain sort of start to go a little bit. So I guess start typing up your last questions, and I'll start looking through these that like really grab me. That I feel like I have like a good answer to, even though my brain's starting to fade a little bit here. Is there a part of the Freeman's mind or other work that really bugs you? Something you wish you had managed better? There are, except for the Halo videos they did for April Fools, I see things I should have done better in every single video I've done. With Freeman's Mind, I would just put myself in sort of this daze, like, no, I would just think, okay, well, that could have been done better, whatever. Just keep moving forward. Just keep going forward. There's so much left. Keep going forward. That's the mentality I got with Freeman's Mind. So yeah, I'm sure there's all kinds of things, like the inflection of my voice maybe didn't come out so well. Or I thought, oh, okay, that joke's kind of stupid. I should have done better than that. It happens. I try my best not to get too bogged down by it, but I try to correct it whenever I have time to. and especially the more effort I put into a video, the more I want to kind of clamp down on it. So something like civil protection, that stings more when I do something poorly than something like a game dungeon or one of these videos, because I had more time to put into it, so I feel like the standard should be higher. Okay. Do you think it was okay for From Software to release Bloodborne as a console exclusive after they released the two Souls games on PC? It certainly doesn't make it more popular. I'd love to see exclusive games die off. I mean, my guess is Sony probably paid them to do that. I don't know the specifics, but I mean, it makes sense. You know, why? Otherwise, you're losing sales. You know, so usually the amount of money they pay them has to offset the amount of probable sales they would get on the PC. But or it could have just been a contractual thing they had like way ahead of time saying, hey, this will be a PS4 exclusive because we need to sell it. Honestly, I think exclusive games are anti-consumer now. I mean, obviously, if the studio just doesn't want to take the effort of porting something, I can understand that. But when a company is paying money to keep it off a platform, nobody wants that. Nobody. It's just not a good practice. You know, where the company would bring this to another platform if they weren't contractually bound from not. So I wish that all that stuff would just die. Noble Pop-Tart bet his friend $20 he couldn't get shout outs. Okay, here you go. Maybe you can cut me in. You know, give me $1 or something. Let's see. When will you grow a full beard? I don't know. I mean, that'd be easier. Might get a little itchier. I don't know. Yeah. People seem to not mind that so much in the last video. I mean, I don't know. I think I look a little more like a scary bum if I have a full beard, but I don't know. It might end up being. I might end up getting lazy enough that that's the route I go in. We'll see. Okay. I'm about 20 minutes behind on the questions. No, I'm not. Somebody's asking if I'm going to do a special thing for Freeman's Mind because of some 20th anniversary. No, I will bring back Freeman's Mind. It's just I gotta get just one more thing I have to get to and everything else. Okay, someone's revising their question saying about what I think about YouTubers with small subscriptions commenting on ones with big subscriptions. I don't know. I mean, people do whatever. Don't watch it if you don't want to, you know. I can see where that would seem a little incestuous because it's just a loop back effect where you're only talking about these people. So, but I don't have a strong opinion either way. I'm not really going out of my way to watch those kinds of videos. I mean, my favorite ones are ones like, you know, sort of small production, like comedies or just people they're really using YouTube as some sort of creative platform. But okay, I'm just gonna pick the questions now that I think are worth answering. Or it's not that the others might not be worth answering, but that I have the energy to, I guess, mental energy points. What movies did you like the best throughout your life? As a kid, I loved Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade so much. Let's see, what are some other? Fight Club I liked a lot. Office Space. Uh, you know, until I turned 17, I think I had seen exactly 2 R-rated movies. My mother just clamped down on that so much. So once I turned 17, I went nuts watching just like every R-rated movie I could find. So I missed out on several. I mean, part of it when you're growing up is like what you have available too. Uh, let's see. I remember as a kid, I wanted to watch Ghostbusters and Gremlins so badly. Let's see, what are movies that had a big influence on my life? I don't know. I guess others I would have to think about some more. I mean, some of them, it's not like they changed my worldview or anything. Yeah, because some people might think like Fight Club did that. Like I wasn't just like blow away. It's just more like I really found that entertaining. Uh, I don't know. It's something I have to. Yeah. Okay. My brain power is fading again. So see. Now that we're several months into this, I'm more aware of this happening. So, again, it's a progressive thing. Okay, I talked about my thoughts on the new Doom on one of the older videos, so you have to check. Again, it'll be in the playlist of YouTube when this goes up. What is your opinion on social games such as Second Life, Roblox, etc.? Not my kind of thing, but hey, you know, people like them, why not? It's, yeah, again, people are asking about the new Doom. I talked about that. I know I did on a previous one. I'm sorry they're not listed by like when I talk about what question. You're free to submit that in comments once it goes up on YouTube. It's just, you know, the time it would take for me to do that, I can spend working on the next game dungeon. You know, that's how this stuff works out. Do you have any story or game with Lovecraft elements to recommend? You know, one that's really interesting for Lovecraft stories is like the dream quest of someone like Cladeth or Kadeth or something. That one's not your typical Lovecraft. It's not like super creepy. It's just really exotic. Like, it's like take, it's just, what was it? High fantasy, I think is the term, when you're just getting really out there. That one's interesting. Let's see, for Lovecraft, I find tends to have like better idea. Or okay, yeah, the color, is it the color out of? I think it's the color out of time. It's the something out of time. I'm so sure somebody can type the right title. That one's pretty cool. I like that one. For games, of course, everybody's gonna mention the Call of Cthulhu: Shadows of the Earth, which has good and bad to it, I think. But and of course, I mentioned Dagon earlier. I think Dagon's the best sort of Lovecraft movie that I've seen. Ross, what do you think about ROMs? Is it illegal if you do own a physical copy of the game? I don't even know. I mean, it's like I think maybe you have to like rip it yourself in order for it to be legal, or maybe that's only the BIOS of the machine you're emulating. You know, well, that's what I asked when I did it was either, I think, the Followup episode or maybe Carnival, where they were asking like, you know, what's the cutoff point for piracy? And I got a pretty good answer. They were saying that if you own the game, don't worry about copying it for your own use. If you can't buy the game from normal retailers, in other words, no developer is getting any money for it, or even the rights holder is getting any money for it, like you can only get it through like secondhand, then people seem to agree that piracy is okay. And I was sort of leaving it up to the internet what they think. That sounds reasonable to me. I mean, because it's not lost sales at that point. You know, leave those games for like the collectors, the people who want that on their shelf, that copy, and other people just want to be able to play the game. So, but we're entering into weird territory with online distribution, especially when the games get shut down. So, yeah, for the record, I think piracy is, if it's even possible, I think it's always justified if you can literally not play the game legitimately anymore, and the game company has not made any plans to revive it. So if it's just like, oh, it's gonna, you know, we're switching our servers, it's gonna take us a few months to get back up. Okay, well, you know it's coming back or something. But if it's just the way 99% of them do, they just drop the game. Yeah, I think it's always justified. Some people have strong opinions about, like, you know, whether ROMs should be legal or not. I think that's a good test. If you can literally not buy the game so that no rights holder or developer can profit from it, I think it's pretty justified. Okay, I'm still taking too long. Sorry, I'm bad. Well, there's so many questions. Is there a movie that is based on a book that you think is better than the book? Well, yeah, I said Dagon. I know. Geez, I'm trying to. I know there's another one, but I can't remember it. Okay, well, this is a pretty obvious question, but why not? You were on a very tight, Russ, you were on a very tight budget. Do you think having unlimited money would help you make it faster, better? The issue I see is that you outsource more things. You might be uncomfortable not having a direct hand in things. Yes, it would obviously help everything. But well, although I have had a lot of volunteer offers for some things, that's why I need to kind of get on top. Part of what I want to do in the future is try to sort of delegate things that don't need as much a personal touch. But so I might be able to do that without unlimited money. But unlimited money isn't even my goal. Like just not having stress from worrying about just paying for base needs stuff. That's all it comes down to for me with money. And then other things, obviously, I could produce the movie more efficiently if I had more money to work on things. So yeah, there's some things I would have to have a direct hand in, but there's a whole lot of things I wouldn't. So, okay. Some people are asking time estimates. I don't know. The planet side thing it'll all be explained soon in a video. I really hope within like a week, week and a half, something like this. But promising nothing I promise nothing ever with dates just about now, just because it's come way too close and I've lost way too much sleep in the past over it. But oh yeah, PlanetSide is absolutely free to play, so don't worry about that. But again, I will answer like every probably important question you have about PlanetSide in the video. Somebody's asking about potential movie update videos. I don't, just because I think it'll be frustrating. It's like, oh, I didn't get much done because I made a bunch of game dungeons. People don't want to hear that. I'd really rather just kind of just take a little bit more of a Valve approach with the movie itself. But technical details I can talk about if people have questions. But this stuff takes so much time, guys. That's the thing to remember. Okay, I'm gonna just try and be even more ruthless on omitting questions here. Yeah, so now we obviously have a lot of silence because I'm just reading through this. But hey, it's at the end of the video, so that's a better way to do it. Okay, well, hey, they're saying in Freeman's mind, I mentioned a guy breaking into Freeman's place and gutting himself on the glass. Is there a story behind that? That's an exaggeration of what actually happened. My place in Pittsburgh got broken into, and they smashed the window, but they also broke the door in. And my landlord had the best explanation. They thought, yeah, they probably thought that would be the way to go in. Then they realized it was like double pane insulated glass and realized they would gut themselves if they tried to come through that way. So then they just spent like 10 minutes working the door open with a crowbar and finally got in that way. So I was just imagining like, well, what if they just, the natural step, well, what if they just decided to go that way? I thought that would be funnier to put in Freeman's mind that way. Okay. Ross, do you ever feel like you can't use the money you get from donations and things that aren't necessity? I I mean, unless they say it in the comments, yeah, absolutely. However, the sort of cheat option of that is the income I get from YouTube. I mean, most of that goes towards, you know, rent, taxes, food anyway, also. But if uh, anything I buy would have to come from that, like the money that comes from donations, that absolutely goes towards living expenses, and I wouldn't even be able to get by on just what I make from YouTube now. So thanks again, thanks a ton for that. But again, if somebody says no, you know, spend this on something extra, then I might, you know, divert that. But no, I mean what I say. It's just it's food and rent pretty much. So okay, about 10 minutes behind on the questions. Ross, will you ever do a collaboration with other YouTubers? Yeah, might. Oh, hey, I did some with Tom, though. Fortunately, Tom seems to be much more Tom White of Weird Video Games. He tends to be much more divisive than I would have thought. Do you have a game from your childhood that you still think holds up to this day, even without the nostalgia goggles? Well, I don't know if it wasn't my childhood exactly, but yeah, I think Tyrion and Strife still hold up really well. I mean, Strife, you obviously have to account for the graphics, but the rest of it I think is pretty solid. Um, yeah, I don't know. I have to think about more. I mean, childhood I wasn't playing. Childhood the games are a lot more basic and abstract than now, so it's not like it's not really the same sort of comparison. Well, I mean Tetris, but Tetris is be a casual game now. So was Moon Gaming an April Fool's joke? Well, what do you think? Okay. Okay, this guy came back at me. How long did it take to grow the beard for Moon Gaming? That was a little over 3 weeks. Okay, I'm about caught up. So, I mean, for the I know some people got skipped, but the ones that I wasn't gonna have that good answer for, or I'd be going, trying to think of something. So, I guess I'm gonna shut this down unless I see one to think like, oh, I have to answer this one like the next minute or so. If I ever see you in public, I travel to Europe a lot. May I speak to you? Sure, I don't mind meeting people as long as I'm not super busy. I mean, I'm in Gdańsk, so this guy just wants me to yell. I'm not gonna yell now. It's kind of late if you're disturb neighbors. I mean, I have done like occasional like line requests for people, but especially donators. But it's okay. Yeah, I'm not seeing much else here. I mean, I know some people asked some lot of questions, but considering how much I went through, I feel like I got through pretty well. This is still like a little bit longer than I want these to go. I think between 1 hour, an hour and a half would be my ideal, but there was so much to cover this time. Okay, so yeah, that game dungeon coming soon, and we're gonna start something going with Planetside. Should be fun. All right. Yeah. Okay. Last question. Ross, is there a genre of music that you absolutely despise? Yeah, I really don't like, I guess, R&B and country with like modern country, Hawaiian guitar. Like, I actually don't mind country if it's like really old, like country, like, with like a banjo and guitar. It's like acoustic or something. That can kind of be kind of fun. But modern country I tend to kind of hate, and by real old I mean stuff that might go back to like the 1800s, that level of old. But and even then, real selective. But R&B, I just tend to hate universally. That actually really affected my ability to enjoy Guardians of the Galaxy because I hated almost every track on there, music-wise, because I thought the movie is cool, but wow, I personally really hate this kind of music. So it made it difficult for me to enjoy the movie. Okay, yeah, that's about it. More stuff is coming, even though things might get a little slow on this sort of 3-month plan thing I have. It's the end goal is to get even more out, and so I have to invest time to save time, I think is what it comes down to. All right, so that's it. This time my internet held up. So see you later.